welcome iedereen. Welcome everybody to this cocktail with the curator. We'll be doing this in English this evening because we have an international public. At the end, there will be a question and answer, Q&A. If you wish to ask questions and you would like to do that in Dutch, that is totally fine as well. So welcome, I hope you're all enjoying your cocktail. I'd like to introduce to you my colleague and friend, Virginie de Hane, the curator of this exhibition, the reason why you're all here. I'd also quickly like to introduce Puk Tissen, who's now in the dark room next door, who prepared your cocktails. I hope you enjoy them. Should you not know what you're drinking, if you have a cocktail, the ingredients are amaretto, a lemon, and a pomegranate cream made. And the mocktail is a pear shrub, and I've been told that that has pear, vinegar, sugar, and soda water in it. And all the ingredients are actually inspired by the drawings that you may have seen in the kitchen of the house by Paul de Vos and Frans Snijders. So with that, we have entered our exhibition. And I direct my first question to you, Virginie. And I think it's an interesting point to start to ask you, so why did you set out to make an exhibition that completely is made up of drawings?
So you might or you might not know the Museum Plantin-Moretus, which in the first place takes care of the famous Plantin Press, which was one of the most important publishing houses in Europe in the 16th and 17th century. Which is much less known is that our museum also holds a very important collection of old master drawings, so ranging from the 16th until the 18th century. And many of these old master drawings have been placed quite recently on the so-called topstukkenlijst, or Flemish masterpiece list, which means that they are considered to be rare and indispensable for our history and heritage. And so this was for us the occasion to make an exhibition on these drawings and place them in the full spotlight.
And the title of the exhibition is From Scribble to Cartoon. Drawings from Bruegel to Rubens. From Scribble to Cartoon is quite an unusual title. Can you tell us a little bit more about the title?
Yeah, so with the title we immediately want to show that there is, so the exhibition is on, we're showing basically the 100 most beautiful drawings preserved in Flemish collections. So, but with the title, we want to show that there is much more than that. There is also a story that we want to tell. And so, from scribble to cartoon, or better in Dutch, is van crabbelinge tot carton. And a crabbelinge is actually a 17th century word which describes a quick sketch, a quick design for an artwork. And then you have the cartoon, which is a 17th century word that describes a work of art, a design in the final stage, which is made on full scale. And so from scribble to cartoon, from quick sketch to final design, so we want to, in this exhibition, we tell the story of the functions of drawings. Why were these drawings made, and why did artists use particular drawing materials or techniques to
execute, to create the artworks? So, in a way, all these drawings, they depict stories, they depict subjects, but contrary to what maybe the audience or the public might expect, is that it's really not the focus. The focus is, as you explained, functions. And with doing that, it's actually been a quite innovative, quite novel way of looking at these drawings, and quite groundbreaking too. You've gotten quite some recognition for making this exhibition, right?
Yes, that's true. And so why is it so groundbreaking? Which is such a big word. But so in that time, so it's basically it's about the 16th and 17th century, and in that time, but even until now, drawings were usually not made as artworks in itself, but now we go to an exhibition and we admire them as artworks in themselves. But this was not why they were made. They were made with a very particular goal. And in so many texts, scholarly texts and catalogs on drawings, this functional aspect, it's just not addressed. Also because very often we just don't know what the precise function of these drawings exactly was, but that doesn't mean we don't have to talk about it. And so we, for this innovative concept, we received a grant by the American Getty Foundation, and so we also had subsidies from a Flemish government, so Toerisme Vlaanderen and Kunsten en Erfgoed. We have the, I don't know the translation, but the Europees Voorzitterschapslabel. And so it's also a quite international project, so we collaborated with a lot of international experts, so who were in the advisory committee, and also who wrote the text for the catalogue. And last but not least, so the exhibition will have a second venue in Oxford, in the Ashmolean Museum, where it will be shown in an adapted form.
In a different form, exactly. So making an exhibition like this requires a lot of preparatory work. Lots of research, many decisions need to be made. It's not just a quick pulling together of works to make an exhibition. So when did you start working on this project?
I thought about this week. So actually the first idea for this exhibition was more or less came three and a half years ago, when it was full lockdown, Corona, and we were stuck at home, and so nobody, all work fell apart. So, and then I had some time to think about new ideas, and this is where this was born. And then, so yeah, it took a lot of time. Like making the selection for the exhibition took really a lot of time, because yeah, there were a couple of criteria where you have to think, and everything has to fit.
And not only this idea was born, in the meantime, you also had a baby daughter that was born. So
it's quite a process to get here. And so you talked a little bit about
selecting, because obviously there's a lot to see in the exhibition. I hope you've had a chance to quickly get a glimpse of that. There's a lot of beautiful works, but that doesn't mean it's all there is. So how did you start selecting it? How did you come to these works have to be in the exhibition, and others unfortunately cannot be in the exhibition?
Yeah, so first of all, because we state it's the 100 most beautiful drawings, so is this my decision? Well, I had a big say in this decision, but so we also erected a kind of an advisory committee, which was also of international experts, so who with whom we regularly came together to discuss. So basically I made a selection, and then we discussed, and then I added or I cancelled, eliminated, and then sometimes I added them again. So, but the
after they all said no, you added them.
Yeah. So I think also for the advisory committee, in the end, the exhibition was to some extent a surprise. So, but like, yeah. So, but basically, in the selection process, there were 3 important criteria, and the first thing is, so we're showing the most beautiful drawings. So, like, quality, the quality of what you see is a very important issue. We don't want to show minor works, but like good works. This is a very important quality. Of course, condition plays a very important role, and especially for drawings, which was, were tools for creating other artworks, and were not necessarily considered in that time as artworks in themselves. So they usually suffered a lot through time. So condition, a good condition. So there are a lot of drawings with with stains or loss of material, so which we cannot show. And then, of course, it has, and this is probably the most important thing, it has to fit in the story. We wanted to show for what different reasons drawings were made at that time, so it had to fit, and so all these 3 criteria had to match
to come together. And
yeah.
Did you still, in the process, did you have to kill some of your darlings? Like in Dutch, we say kiezen is verliezen. You make choices. It means some of them don't make it. Were there any that you had to, or are you pretty satisfied that everything that should be in it is in it?
So also, what was something of a limit is the fact that it's all the selected works come from Flemish collections, so which means that you have to do it with the collection, with the works that are in these collections. So, and for example, what I regret, which is not there, is a figure study, like a study of after a model, a live model, and this is so we do have one in our exhibition, in our collection, and it is considered to be a work by Rubens, but it's just not so good.
Okay.
So also, so then I was like, okay, no, we don't want to show something that is supposed to be a Rubens, which is actually not that good, and so we eliminated it. So, but we don't have it.
Okay.
And it was, of course, like because for all these paintings, all these figures, there were figure studies, of course, were made, and we do not show it in the exhibition.
But we have a nice set of male legs in the exhibition.
Yeah, that's true.
They can make up for it. The exhibition focuses on, as we've said, about 100 of the most exquisite drawings. What's quite remarkable is that about 80 of the drawings in the exhibition are actually from this collection, from this house, from the Museum Plantin-Moretus. So it's just very important to emphasize that for those of you who don't always read the label as to where works are from. But how maybe it's interesting to talk a little bit about how so many of these exquisite works ended up in this collection.
It's also a good question why in our collection and not in others. So it's important to realize that in the Museum Plantin-Moretus we preserve the old publishing house, but not only the publishing house but also its entire belongings. So it was sold by the family Moretus in the end of the 19th century to the city of Antwerp, and so everything that was related to the publishing house and to the family house was sold to the city. And so it's the publishing house, it includes the presses, the furniture, but also all the tools that were used for making these books. It's also the books, but also the letters, and also, of course, for making the illustration in the books, it's the copper plates where the illustrations were printed from, but also the designs for the copper plates. And so the core of our collection is derives from this belongings of the publishing house and are the designs for the book illustrations. And again, the Plantin-Moretus publishing house was one of the most important publishing houses at that time. There were very important artists collaborating on these books. So, for example, Rubens, he made around 50, he collaborated on more or less 50 books for the publishing house, but there are others, artists such as Jan Boekhorst or Abraham van Diepenbeek, Maarten de Vos, who are perhaps a bit less known today, but who also collaborate on this. And this is the core business, and then from the beginning, the museum became in the 19th century, it became a museum, this house. And so from the beginning, they started collected on a huge scale, not only objects that were directly related to the publishing house, but also drawings and prints that illustrate the history of graphic art in the southern Netherlands from 16th century until today, and that's what we still do today.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons also that what you said, everything being together here is why, of course, it's a World UNESCO World Heritage Site, the museum and the collection. So let's get back to the exhibition. So it's not very often that we have exhibitions that are made up predominantly from drawings and with so many drawings together. You've already talked about, of course, the impetus of the exhibition. But why is it so special? Why should people really come and see this in the next, from now until February 18th? Why should people really come see it? Because it's quite special, it's quite a feat, quite unique to have this many drawings together. It's not that easy to show them.
No. So so maybe you have noticed the exhibition is only 3 months. Usually exhibitions they're up to 6 months, and this is because drawings are extremely light sensitive. If you put a newspaper in the sunlight, it will fade, and so do drawings. All artworks made on paper, they just fade if they're exposed to too much light, and so this is why we never show drawings in permanent displays. It's only so because they have to be preserved in dark storages. So they're usually just in our storage, and so so this is why this is so unique to have so many so beautiful drawings in this exhibition, because after the exhibition they will be just in storage again for many years. And this is also the reason, because you might have noticed that it's so dark in the exhibition rooms, because it's just so the maximum lighting is 40 lux, and if you put more light, they will just disappear, and they will be lost for the future.
So just, you know, keep that in mind. What you see today, you won't be able to see again until you're 5 or 10 years older.
And this is also the reason why there are 2 works where you have to press a light. And this is because these are very important drawings which have been shown a lot in the past, because they're very popular for exhibitions. And so this is so the only manner of showing them was, okay, if they are not exposed to light, but just with this button.
The button, yeah. So
and this makes it also very difficult for you. You always have a lot of loan demands for drawings, for exhibitions, and then you have to say no because they have been exposed too much, and then you have very angry colleagues on the other side.
It's a very, very unique opportunity to see so many of them of this quality together. When you talked about the intention, the purpose of the exhibition, showing the functions of drawings, and one of the authors described it as, you know, this exhibition gives you the opportunity to look over the shoulders of the artist, to see the creative process. So we see a lot of different techniques. We see pen and ink, we see charcoal, we see chalk, white, red chalk, color even. Some of these drawings, they actually look like little paintings. You might mistake them for paintings, but they are drawings because they're on paper. So did artists use specific materials for specific purposes? Can we kind of draw that conclusion?
Yes, certainly. And yeah, there are so many examples of this. So, but for example, for drawing outdoors, was like, usually artists would choose for dry material, so because it's just much easier to go and draw outdoors, so they would use for graphite or chalk. For example, there is in the exhibition a very nice drawing where just the intention of the artist was capturing the light fall in a wood. in a in a wooded path.
Yeah.
And so and there, because he was just interested in capturing this light, he used a very particular technique with 3 tones. So he used a colored paper, because if you have a colored paper, you can both go lighter with white chalk, but you can go darker with black chalk, and so you could completely focus on rendering the full scale of this dark and light.
Right. So materials are definitely something to focus on when you're looking at the artworks. The other thing that really stands out is that the drawings are all of different formats that might seem
evident, I think, in this exhibition. So we have large drawings, we have smaller drawings, and the very smallest one, I think, is about this big. And I hope you all had a chance
to go upstairs in the library and see the very large drawing that's 10 meters long. So can you just tell us a little bit about these 2 works, because they're such opposites of each other?
Yeah, so the smallest work you're suggesting is it's a design for a title page of a book on poems. And so it was a very tiny book. And the designs for title pages, they were always made on exactly the same size as the title pages to be printed. And because, and of course, these the title pages needed to fit in the book. So, and this is why, this is such a small
book is about this big, huh? So.
Yeah, and so also the draftsman, they always, like for these designs for title pages or prints, they really drew out the framing lines of how big it was exactly was needed to be. And then the very long panorama of Walcheren in Zeeland is probably, because again, there are so many things we don't know for sure, but it is probably related to a painting in a very long gallery in the Pardo Palace by the Spanish king Philip II, where this is lost, this painting, but we know from description that there was a panorama of Zeeland by this artist.
So make sure to see it if you haven't seen it. It's filled with details. You see the little ships. You see even fish swimming in the water.
Yeah, and it's there because it simply didn't fit the exhibition rooms. So this is why we needed to find another space to show it.
So we've talked a little bit about materials. We've talked about size. Some of the those of you who have paid a very good attention to the drawings, you might have seen that some of the drawings have writing on them. So that's also a very interesting topic and can teach us many things. The drawing you just mentioned, the smallest one in the exhibition, is actually by Rubens. So that one too has writing on it. What does it tell us? Why is that so interesting?
So many drawings have writings on them because they were just a very important means of communication between the involved parties for the artwork to be made. And one of these involved parties was the patron, the commissioner of the artwork, who wanted to know in advance how his artwork was going to look like. And so this drawing, this is a very small drawing, so it has a note on top of it, which is by Rubens, and it's directed to his patron, the publisher Plantin-Moretus. And it's so interesting because these notes, they teach us so much about what was discussed during these, during the design of an artwork, the
emails
production
of the 17th century.
Yeah, exactly. And so he writes on top of it. First of all, Rubens explains what he has drawn. So he writes, I have drawn here the Muse, so it's in Latin, so I'm translating here. So he writes, I have drawn here the Muse and Athena. And so it's so interesting already to see that he is explaining what he has drawn. Because in that time, these title pages, they were full of very complex references to the content of the book. And even for the publisher, it was not entirely clear what was exactly drawn. So Rubens is explaining, look, I have drawn this, and then he refers to other existing examples where the Muse and Athena have been combined before. So he's legitimizing his choice for this, and he says, look, I'm not inventing this. This exists, so it can be done. And then he says, I hope you like my design. So he's really asking for approval of his design. And he adds, and this brings us so close to the artist, he adds, me, myself, I'm very pleased with it. So
I rather like it.
yeah.
Quickly, because I'm keeping an eye on the time as well. There's another work in the first room that is drawn by Jordaens that has 5 women on it. That has some writing on it too, which is very interesting to very quickly maybe mention what is so special and so unique about that one, that writing that's on that work.
Yeah, so it's a drawing. I think if you just walk through the exhibition, which you perhaps wouldn't notice because it doesn't look so special. So it's just this 5 women chatting. But then there is this inscription at the bottom, which says in Dutch, I'm going to say it in Dutch, 5 klappijen klappende van de beroerte op 1 oktober 1659 uit de venster gezien. So it's 5 women chatting on this particular date about disturbances in the city. I've seen it from the window. So, so that day there was an uprising by the guilds against a family that had a monopoly on the postal services, and so
it's the idea that he says, I've seen it from my window. So it's us today taking our telephone and taking a picture. And instead he drew it and he noted it down. So, so the writing on the drawings, are we always sure it was the artist himself who wrote on there? Or do we have writing too that was done by a later hand?
No, so basically, so also because, actually, in most cases, if there are inscriptions on drawings, they are mostly not by the artist. Right. And we also have several examples in the exhibition. So, because what used to be a very popular practice by later collectors was, just writing on their drawings, and because with the drawings, you just have the drawings. They were not signed because they were not artworks in themselves. So. Who made the drawing has been like a major question ever since these drawings have been collected, which was already in the 17th century. And so collectors, I thought, oh, this drawing is by Rubens, and then they wrote on Rubens, and then today we know that it is not by Rubens, so it's not always true.
Right. Yeah, like we have one drawing that says Van Dyck, and it's actually Rubens.
Yes.
You know, maybe at one point people wanted it to be Van Dyck, but we're happy today that we know that it's Rubens. There's also a drawing where, if you read the label, it says attributed to Rubens. So it might be interesting to quickly say what that exactly means when we don't have the name, but we have attributed to.
Yes, so if we put the name, then we're quite sure. So if it says Rubens, we're sure it's Rubens. But again, in so many cases, we're not just that sure who actually made it, and then we say attributed because we are not sure. And sometimes we have our drawing of the Gemma Tiberiana, for example, which was always a Rubens, and recently scholars say they think it's not Rubens, and it's still an ongoing debate, like who made this, and so sometimes there is new information which adds to these questions.
So we mentioned Rubens quite a bit already, world famous name. One of the things that we haven't talked about yet, which is actually quite remarkable that we have in this exhibition, is a little tiny album with drawings glued in that were made by Rubens as a young lad when he was about 13 years old. So that's quite special, isn't it, to have something like that?
No, so yes, it's so very special. These are the earliest known drawings by Rubens, and there are so much. I mean, there are 43 of them, right. And they show. So we know. So they already show what a great talent he was. So we know from art theory that artists started their training by copying prints. So a print is a printed image. It's a two-dimensional flat image which consists out of lines, and so this is the most easy thing to copy, and this is how a training starts. And it's fantastic that we can illustrate this by means of the earliest drawings by Rubens, where he's copying a print series by Hans Holbein, which is an early 16th century artist.
And for those who look very closely, see that Rubens was already kind of doing his own thing with it and making it much more dynamic. Speaking of dynamism in a drawing, I think we have to talk a little bit about the Leeuw van Nemea and Hercules and Rubens. Why is this work so phenomenal?
This is just because, Rubens is a big name. Why is he such a big name? Because this is a creative genius, and this is what is shown in this drawing. You really see, so it's the drawing depicts the wrestling of Hercules with the lion of Nemea, a Nemean lion, and you see him looking at his, and this is what artists do all the time. He's looking at predecessors. He's rendering it in the way of the predecessors, but then at the same time he's trying to do something new and trying to make it do better. And you really see him because it's not a finished work, so he's still trying. And you see Hercules not with 2 legs but with 3 legs, because he's still looking for the right position of rendering this.
So in that case, we really have the feeling of looking over the shoulder of the artist while he's
still
figuring out his composition. Speaking of Rubens, he was a friend of this house. He came to the house a lot. We talked about book designs, etc. But it's not only for two-dimensional works that designs are made, obviously. We have in the exhibition a very nice drawing by Rubens that was made for a sculpture that's very closely connected to this house as well.
Yes, and it's very important because I haven't talked about it. So in that time, there was a division of labor. So usually it was an artist, a painter, who delivered designs, not only for painting, but also for prints and book illustration, and decorative arts and sculpture. And Rubens is the best example of this. So because he delivered designs for all these different type of artworks. And so for the Plantin-Moretus, he also designed a couple of statues, which are still in the letter room here, and today. And so we have now one in the exhibition.
So drawings were, if you walk through the exhibition and you take it all in, you will notice the drawings were really at the basis of all other artworks, not just painting, sculpture as well, tapestries, architecture. I might want to go back to the title of the exhibition, because you talked a lot about design and a bit about sketching as well, but the word cartoon. Let's focus on that again. Tell us a little bit more about some of the cartoons that we have in the exhibition. And
yes, and so before I said drawings were a means of communication between involved parties, and these were, of course, there was the patron, the commissioner of the artwork, but there were also the other involved parties, because you have the designer and then you have the executor, which was like, for example, a tapestry weaver. And this tapestry weaver needed to know how the work needed to look like, and he also needed to know what colors had to be used. And so for example, there is a cartoon for tapestry which is full of color, so he could
Right.
Yeah, just follow. There is another example of a cartoon, which is for a church window, and these church windows, they were usually painted with much less color, and so you can also see in the design that there is much less color.
It's very subdued.
And important, so these cartoons for tapestry or for church windows, they were on the full size of the artwork, so they were extremely big, and they're very rarely survived time.
Right.
So usually we just only have fragments of them because
they are cut
just
apart because they're
yes.
too big to keep as an entirety. So indeed, so some of these cartoons, as I mentioned before, they look like little paintings. Particularly Jordaens stands out, I think, when we talk about colorful drawings. There's several works by Jordaens in the exhibition, recognizable by his colors. One work maybe in particular to mention tonight, Psyche and Pan.
Yeah. Because I just talked about color, but actually there were not so many artists that used color in their drawings, and so this is why Jordaens stand out. And maybe it's also nice to know that the colors in the exhibition are actually inspired on the colors that Jordaens used, because it's so exceptional that he used color in his drawings. So it's the yellow, the blue, and the red. And so there's one of these drawings is Psyche, who is being condoled by Pan. Yeah. And so it's a very beautifully finished drawing with a lot of color. It's really like it's a perfect painting on paper, you would say. And so why is this so carefully finished? Because Jordaens was trying to get a very important commission of 22 paintings. But before he could get this commission, he needed to show what he was going to do. I mean, the patron needed to approve of his proposal, and so this drawing was shown to the patron to say, look, this is my proposal. And it was accepted. But a nice detail is as well is that his patron actually was the English king, Charles I. But Jordaens didn't know about this because the English king, he worked with a middleman to lower the price of his commission. Yeah.
So when we look closely at Jordaens' works, you will not only see the colors, but you will also see something else that's very particular with Jordaens, how he uses his paper and some other very particular technique that's typical for him.
Yes, and that's so. Jordaens has it's his cut and paste technique. So what Jordaens always did, and this is really how you can recognize immediately a Jordaens drawing. So it's the color, the use of color, but it's also the cut and paste. So what he did, he had a sheet of paper, and then he kept on adding pieces of paper at all sides to enlarge his sheet, and then draw further on it. And even when he changed his mind, he also added pieces of paper on top of his sheet, and then he drew a new idea on it. And there is even one work in the exhibition, The King Drinks, this one, yeah. Where there is even a piece of paper that you can actually still lift, and you can see his first idea underneath the piece of paper. But it's very difficult to show that. And we couldn't show it in the exhibition.
Yeah.
But it's
you see it when you look at it, that there's a piece of paper stuck on it. So we've ended up in the last room, the room that puts together drawings that are labeled as independent drawings, meaning art for art's sake, drawings made as a piece of art, not just anymore as a design for something else, not just as a study. How do you distinguish an artwork that is made for something else or that is an independent drawing?
So they're not always so easy to distinguish, but the clearest examples are drawings, so that were created as artworks in itself, is that they are very well finished. That and there is a very nice example in the exhibition by Johannes Wieriks. So it's a very it's called Apelles painting Campaspe, and so it's very carefully finished. It's signed. It's dated. The artists even draw a framing line around it, and it's also executed on parchment, which was a much more precious material than just paper. And so there, I mean, it's so clear that this was just, it's just an artwork in itself. But then there are so many examples where we are not just that sure, and it's a hypothesis, like a very finished drawing. It could be a design, like to be shown to the patron, but it could have been intended as an artwork in itself. And also, it's very important to realize that drawings, usually they didn't have just one function. I mean, so a design for a drawing, for a painting, could have a second life as an independent artwork. So we have the example of Bartholomew Spranger, who made a lot of designs for prints and for paintings, but at the same time his drawings were also collected widely by members of the court where he's working. So,
and that's something that's typical for this time too, that we start seeing that drawings are collected and that are exchanged between artists themselves. So as a means of showing their friendship or their appreciation for each other. I have some more questions, but we're running out of time. So I think I'm going to jump to what maybe people want to know. You've talked about a lot of works. You've been working on this for years. You said you've seen a lot of drawings, held a lot of drawings. Do you have a favorite?
I have many favorites, and also we have discussed a couple of them, I think. But so maybe I thought maybe it's good to say something about the drawing that we chose as our campaign image.
Yeah, our campaign
so it's a drawing by Maarten de Vos, Cadmus and Hermione, it's called, and it's a design for a temporary decoration that was made during it's called a joyous an entry of an archduke in the city of Antwerp, and so it shows that artists did not only design like permanent art, but also temporary art. But here maybe it's more about the story, what is represented, and the context behind it. So we see the image represents a story from the Metamorphoses of Ovid. Yeah. And we see the king and queen of Thebes, who had lost their 5 children, so suffered a lot, and so they transform into snakes, and this is exactly what we see. And so, but the interesting thing is that, and this you cannot see on this, you have to see it on the drawing, but there is a Latin note on the drawing, and it says that everybody knows good and bad fortune. And what is so nice is that Hermione has a crown on which with flags, and on these flags there are hands represented, and they are a reference to the city of hands, that's Antwerpen. And so this quote about everybody knows good and bad fortune, it clearly also refers to Antwerp, because we're in the late 16th century, and so Antwerp has had a lot of bad fortune with the iconoclasm, the Spanish fury, and then the fall of Antwerp in in 1585. So even also Antwerp has had a lot of good and bad fortune.
So it's a timeless message with which we come to the end of this conversation. So thank you so much, Virginie, for explaining some more about these exquisite drawings. I hope that you all will take another look at the exhibition with a completely broadened mind now as to how to look at these artworks. I mention again that the exhibition will run through February 18th, so you can come more than once, which I think is necessary to take it all in. After that, it will, or part of it, will travel to Oxford, to the Ashmolean Museum of Art, so good excuse to head over there to see some of our works in conversation with some of the artworks at the Ashmolean. They also have a very large and extensive collection of works that they will, so it'll be a different exhibition altogether. I would also like to mention we've worked very hard on these books, and several of the authors, some of which were also in the advisory committee, and some other artists, all experts and scholars who are working on drawings, have been working on drawings for a long time, have contributed to the extensive catalog, which, so this, as well as this smaller book, which is a highlight of 40 works in the exhibition, will be on sale in our shop tonight, so don't leave without it.
Without a book.
And I had several more questions, which we didn't get to. We have 1 minute left, but after that, there's more time for you guys, not for me.
For questions.
For questions. So I hope this has kind of set some wheels turning, and we'd love to hear from you if you have questions. And like I said before, feel free to ask them in Dutch, and then we will just translate them and we will reply to them in English. Yes, there's a question.
Virginie, I have more question about your curatorial practice than about the exhibition itself.
Mm-hmm.
You're considered quite a young curator, especially in classical arts. Is there a reason why you have more interest in curating classical art and contemporary, as in most curatorial studies, do you still focus on classical art?
I'll repeat the question quickly because we have to record it.
Okay, yeah.
So the question is not so much about the exhibition, it's more about Virginie as a curator. So the question is, why are you more interested in the older art, the classical art as you call it, rather than contemporary art?
Yeah, it's a good question. Why?
Rethink.
So I think I didn't intend to study visual arts, but then I was doing art history, and then I was very intrigued by all these stories behind the paintings. There was so much context to tell. So you have the subject, but then you have why were these artworks made. So there's so much about it, and the more you know, the more you appreciate it. This is. And I know much less about modern and contemporary art. For me, it's much more difficult to access, I think. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes.
The drawing behind you, is it referring to a special king, or is it just
no, it's the king of Epiphany. How do you call it? The six. The drie koningen.
The drie koningen.
Yeah, the feast of the three kings. It's
a very popular theme in the 17th century already in the Low Countries. Yes?
You said there was a note of Rubens who said, "I myself am quite pleased with this art." On which one was that?
It's on this very small drawing, which you also maybe would not look at it, because there was even somebody of my committee who asked, "Do you really want this in the exhibition?" And I said yes, because it's so special to have this note. So it's a very small drawing. It's in designs for book illustration, and so it's a design for the title page of a book of poems called Epigrammata. So yeah. It's in the exhibition.
It's in the second room, in a glass case. And the book is only about this big.
For the smallest book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
So could I specify once again why you don't use the word modello and you use the word drawing? Is modello, well...
So modello, we actually do use, I haven't used it, but we do use it. With the modello, we mean actually the final design. So the cartoon is a final design on a full scale, so it's huge. But then you also have a final design which is shown to the patron or shown to the other artists who are working, who need to work from it, and this is called what we call the modello.
So it's more narrow than a drawing.
A drawing can be any type of drawing, any type of function, but the modello is the final, is like a final design for an artwork. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, in the back.
I was waiting for a question by you. I knew there was one person.
You described that, so 80 pieces are from the carton from here, but how do you, so this is a layman's question, how do you know how many drawings you actually have to consult in the world before making this happen?
Yeah, but so it was we only looked at Flemish collections, and this also has to do with the fact that the occasion was that there were so many drawings placed on the Flemish masterpiece list, and so this is, and then, yeah, we have been looking to all these collections. I mean, there are not so many in Flanders as well, so.
And it's public and private. So there's public institutions, so you'll see in the labels that some of the loans are from other Flemish institutions, but also some are from private collectors, people who collect drawings, particularly of this particular era, for themselves. So, and are very generous to lend them to exhibitions. More questions? Yeah, sure.
Would there ever be a breakthrough, you think, in terms of lighting that works? That there is perhaps at some point light that doesn't damage the... Or is that completely impossible?
So it's a more technical question, whether we will discover light that doesn't harm the drawings.
Nowadays, nearly everything seems to be possible.
Yeah, that's true, but it's still that's ongoing research. So and it's true that they have like new types of lights, and then the question is, I mean, do we still have to hold on these rules of? So because basically the rule is you show a drawing 3 months and then it has to rest for 3 years, and so do we still have to hold on to it? It's usually like the museum, they really want to just stick to this rule because they just don't dare to change it. Because, but
who knows?
So what I know is that they are now there is also a lot of research about like the influence and the consequences of the light, and so they can really predict on how this drawing will look in so many years, like what will be, how it has degraded. So it's quite scary.
Yeah, it's scary for the actual object. Of course, a lot of things are digitized, so we always will have a record of it, but it's nothing compares to the original work, of course, especially for scholars who are looking at it so intently. Other questions? Sure.
Rubens, when he was 13 years old,
Mm-hmm.
they're not science, it's just a study. How do you discover that they're Rubens?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it's actually, it's not only for Rubens, but it's also for like all these other drawings. And how do we know? So there is a lot of stylistic analysis, and so there are, in the case of Rubens, there are many other drawings which he made as a young artist, so where we can compare to. So there is a lot of context. So we have the stylistic analysis, that's a very important source, but of course it is no 100% science. And then you have the context, and for example, which is also nice to know about these drawings, where he's copying Hans Holbein, is that we also know from contemporary sources that Rubens told to his colleagues that when he was young, he copied this particular print series. So this is also like an extra argument. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's end with the young genius of Rubens then. It's a good note to close. So thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will return.